So I'm not sure how many of you already heard, but we managed to get our hands onto another ATIP notes. This time, something which gives us a bit of an insight onto the categories that have been decided upon by IRCC. Now, usually we manage to get these hands onto these notes a bit sooner into the year. This time it's been a bit longer, but thank you so much to Mandeep Lidher, who is also an RCIC and a fellow colleague, a very good friend, and thanks to him who was able to get this ATIP notes, and therefore we can have a little bit more insight as to what exactly IRCC is doing in terms of the draws. Obviously, draws are always on top of everybody's mind, yours mind. I'm sure everybody who's thinking of Canada at any point of time. So express entry draws continue to be a big headache, as well as something that we always look very excitedly towards. But at this point of time, it's more of a concern. It's more of an aspect or issue which creates nervousness, anxiety, panic sometimes, because one, RCC is never consistent with so many things that are happening, but apparently from these notes, it's obvious that they are much more planned than we think that they are, right? So apparently they actually have a 3-month calendar in advance for the draws that they would like to conduct. With this 3 months calendar draw, they are able to send out information to the provinces and let them know in advance what kind of draws they're going to be holding. Provinces then, looking at these draw schedule, are then able to plan their draws. Now, obviously, for this year, you and I both know provinces have got a very tough hand, and their quotas were slashed by 50%. And slowly, some provinces are able to squeeze in some additional quotas. For example, Saskatchewan managed to get another 1,100 quotas for their nomination. They had a very poor hand anyway. With 3,700 something is what they had. Like actually less than 3,700. Now they have about 4,400 after getting this 1,100 extras. So thankfully, they have some more room to play around with. Yukon managed to get some 70, 80 additional slots. New Brunswick has been trying very hard. They had actually got another 1,000. But overall, provinces have been struggling with the nomination quotas that they have. Therefore, you are not seeing any draws from Ontario. You're not seeing much happening with British Columbia. Of course, pretty much all silent. Only Alberta has been the only province who has been conducting draws in a very regular manner, though small numbers. Manitoba silence, Saskatchewan silence. In most cases, the programs are pretty much open and shut at this point of time. But as we move forward, of course, I'm assuming and anticipating that provinces will get their quotas reinstated. And that's where the biggest concern is, as to where do these numbers come from and where will IRCC be drawing out these numbers. But today's video is not about all those factors. It is more to do with this recent ATIP notes that we've got our hands on to. And I'll show them to you, and we'll discuss that very quickly, because it's not a very long set of ATIP notes. It's just 3 pages. But the 3 pages gives us an insight as to what we may expect. So without further ado, let's get cracking with this one, so we then know exactly which direction to go. Let me make myself smaller on the screen. Okay, so this one, the purpose of this memorandum is to share the express entry invitation to apply schedule for the remainder of 2025. Now, it is my assumptions, this document, I haven't been able to identify a date because a lot of it has been redacted, but I'm going to assume that this document was dated and issued sometimes towards the second quarter of this year. Now, when I'm saying second quarter of this year, we are just about going to step into the fourth quarter, still some room there. But the reason why I'm saying this document has been issued, and this is very important for context, right? If you do not know when a document has been issued, very difficult to sort of start assuming things. So this document, the reason why I'm thinking it's second quarter is because this does mention about the fact that the job offer points have been removed. Job offer points having been removed, that was effective 25th of March. So that was first quarter gone. Second quarter started in the month of April. So therefore, I'm assuming somewhere April, May is when this document was issued. Very quickly, first page doesn't give you much on it. It just says that the purpose is to have a schedule, and then that they would like to continue supporting the achievement of 2025 objectives for Francophone admissions, while also meeting the federal economic priorities. Federal economic priorities over here is reference to the category-based draws for in-Canada focus admission targets, as well as the category-based selection. So basically, that's what they're talking about. And that's a 3-month schedule of this plan will be shared with the provinces and territories, providing them with the predictability and meeting the commitment to sharing a round round plan every month, so that the provinces then are aware, right? So moving forward with this document, it tells you, first of all, the background. On 11th of February, the minister had created a new education category with a target of 5% of all federal skilled workers and credit and experience class ITAs. So if the total number of ITAs is X, 5% of this X is the category based for education. Now, the number of ITAs that have been allocated to education is approximately 3,300, and I'll show that to you in a bit. But 5% is what the allocation is. And moving forward, it says the minister has requested that the transport category be removed. It's the end of that. And again, in red, I've highlighted for you, and this is just to confirm what we have been thinking, knowing, talking about it earlier as well, that most of the ITAs that are being issued in the second part or second half of 2025 are actually from the quota of 2026. So these people whose ITAs, most of these ITAs which are being issued now, are all towards the 2026 targets. They will be meeting the 2026 targets, and therefore, so when you start calculating and thinking, that's what you should be knowing as to what those targets are and what is the reference point over there. Then in green, highlighted for you, it talks about the lag between ITA and admissions for Frank. Now, this in green is primarily about the Francophones and the fact that there is an understated priority that we all talk about. So when I'm saying understated, I basically mean is that we don't give it enough importance. Even today, so many people will ask me whether learning French or allotting so much of time to French, is it safe? Like, will IRCC change its plan a year and a half later or 2 years later? Well, these documents will give you that clarity that no, IRCC is absolutely committed to continuing with French. This time, it's about 8.5% immigration target for Francophone. In future, this will continue to grow to 9%, 10%, 11%, and then 12%. And that's what they're looking at. Probably will reach to 12% sooner than you think. And therefore, the immigration quotas will continue to be aligned so that they have the maximum priority for Francophones or the French immigration. Now, this one is talking about that 18,500 invitations that were issued in February. If you are aware of that, they conducted the draws on 19th of February, 6th of March, and 21st of March. 18,500 invitations were issued. And the reason why they decided to issue so many invitations was because they wanted to ensure that all these people who they're inviting, they actually arrive and land in Canada and become permanent residents within this year of 2025, so that they can meet their objective of this number of people for Francophone immigration. Further on, and this is where it gets more interesting, because this is all under the current status, right? This is what we're talking about, current status. And this section is where I am most interested. It says to align with approved targets, about 3,000 dedicated ITAs only. So we are not talking about people who would have received ITAs under a different category, but with the education knock codes. We're not talking about that. Specifically for the education categories, they have planned 3,000 ITAs, 5% target. 8,000 invitations have been assigned for healthcare, which is 15% of the target. Though I am not sure how 5% is 3,000 and 15% is 8,000. The math is not mathing here. I mean, trust me, I've been trying to figure out this math, but I haven't been able to, because the next one says 3,300 ITAs dedicated for trades, 8% target. So how can 3,300 be 8%, 3,000 be 5%, and 8,000 be 15%? I mean, trust me, I did go to school, okay, and I did do my algebra, and I was thankfully pretty decent at it. But this equation, I wasn't able to solve it. But this is for you guys. If you are out there, if you're listening to my video, if you're watching this video, in the comment section, work out this. I fed this to Grok, I fed this to ChatGPT, I fed this to Gemini. None of them were able to give me a specific answer, because all of them are like equally confused as to what the hell is IRCC? Who is figuring out these percentages and the math? Anyways, let's talk about the absolute numbers instead of going into the math, because that one I couldn't figure out, at least not before the video. Maybe at a later time I would be able to. 3,000 invitations issued for, or rather assigned for education. So far, we have had only 1,000 invitations issued, which tells you that there are 2,000 more in the bank. So you can count on that. 8,000 ITAs dedicated for healthcare. So 7,500 have already been issued. So you remember there were two draws of 500, 500. Then there was a draw of 4,000. Then there was a draw of 2,500. So healthcare is pretty much done. They may not issue these remaining 500, though I would think they might have to, or they should actually, but you never know. Healthcare seems to be pretty much done based on this. I'm not saying it, but these notes are saying it. So please don't come after me on this one. 3,300 dedicated for trades. Trades draw hasn't happened at all. But for everybody out there who was such a skeptic and wondering and figuring out whether trades is going to happen, when it's going to happen, why are they not conducting? So you guys, you should know that 3,300 invitations are assigned, are waiting for you in the bank. Hopefully they should withdraw this, and cash this and give it out to you guys. But I'm not sure if this frequency of draw is going to be like, they will issue out 3,300 in the same go. I hope they do, because if they do issue out 3,300 invitations in one go, at least the score will be lower, right? You can expect 450, 460 kind of a score. But if they choose to conduct several or multiple draws for this category of trades, then it becomes a bit tricky. They might conduct draws of 1,000 each, 1,500 each, or 1,500 and 1,800 kind of two draws. That is where it will become a bit tricky, because the scores might not be that low as much as you might be anticipating. So fingers crossed, let's see how that one rolls out. But then from there on, what has happened is that these two sections here have been redacted. Redacted basically means they have been hidden. They have put a whitener, if you want to call it a digital whitener, and we do not know what is under that white portion of this document. Now, obviously, this document doesn't talk about STEM category. It doesn't talk about food and agriculture category. It doesn't talk about anything else. It is only talking about these three categories and, of course, the French. So we don't know if STEM and the food and agriculture only has one knock code, that of butchers. So even if they issue out 150, 200, 300 invitations, it should be pretty good. I don't anticipate anything more than that. Considering what has happened in 2024 as well. So I don't expect too many invitations on that occupation code. But for STEM, I don't know. I do not know anybody who's out there and is thinking what's going on, because in this area here, that is where STEM should have happened, but it isn't there, and we don't know what exactly is in there, hidden there. And therefore, at this point of time, I'm just going to hope and assume that STEM category is in there. It's there somewhere. Just like trade draws haven't happened, STEM draws haven't happened. And at some point of time, IRCC is going to wake up and probably invite those guys as well. Until then, let's talk about what else is happening. Given the high round sizes, the comprehensive ranking score for the French proficiency rounds were lower than all the other category-based selection rounds to be conducted this year. It basically means you won't see very high, large size draws for other categories. It's only reserved for French, because obviously for French, they have a bigger, larger quotas. And therefore, it says that well below the CEC rounds that will follow. So they already knew that the scores will be in 300s if they were to conduct these number of draws for French. And that CEC rounds that will follow will remain high CRS scores of high 500s. High, they're not even saying low 500s. They're saying high 500s. IRCC is already aware of the pool. They're already, because they have real-time data. They have real-time data on how many people are creating profiles, how many people are withdrawing it, how many people are creating duplicate profiles, how many people are declining, how many people are getting rejected, refused, etc., how many in the inventory, how many in the process. They have real-time data. We don't. We only speculate, right? This also tells you if IRCC is expecting that the CRS score will remain in the high 500s, well, then you should also then wake up and smell the coffee and start strategizing based on that. And then in this one is also something which I didn't really understand. What does it mean that the CBS rounds will be thereafter be held in alternating weeks? Alternating weeks basically means every other week. Now, express entry draws are expected every other week, but if they're only going to be holding category-based draws every other week, then we don't know. So this one, again, I think something is not right here in the sense of interpretation. Either they were trying to say something else, but they meant something else, and they've written something else. It's something of that sort. So yeah, I'm not sure what exactly they are looking at. They're saying after the initial French proficiency round in February and March, category-based selection rounds will thereafter be held in alternating weeks. Uh, so far, we haven't seen that happen. So I'm going to assume that they might have changed their plans, because, of course, they can do that as well, or they basically meant something else other than this. Uh, this is the reason why I said that this document is probably issued in the second quarter, because this is already indicating that as of March 25th, Express Entry no longer gives you the CRS points for arranged employment. And because it mentions March 25th in a document, therefore it basically means that whatever this document's date is, it probably is after the 25th of March. And I'm assuming, as I said, somewhere in the month of April, probably could even be May. And again, this is another interesting one. And IRCC acknowledges over here that because the people are not going to be receiving any points for arranged employment, this development, again, we do not know what is written over here, redacted. So it says this development may alter the CRS scores and composition of occupation fields of candidates invited in those rounds. Interesting, right? Even they knew that the scores are going to be impacted. Even they knew that people will be losing points, and therefore this pool breakdown will look different. This is another piece of information which I have always been looking to get confirmation of, but this again says that the round schedule accounts for potential issues following the GCMS system releases. Basically means that IRCC works on the GCMS system, which is also what you can also call the Express Entry system, and they were expecting that there will be technical issues, there will be potential issues, and therefore before the points release was made, or before the points change was made, they decided to conduct all the French proficiency rounds, the large French proficiency rounds, so that there is no further issues, and they wanted to avoid any potential issues. This is something which I always wanted to confirm. Hereby has been confirmed that IRCC's GCMS system is so glitchy, and they have to obviously have constant releases to make sure that that remains working and in order. This is another interesting one, this particular paragraph, and it talks about the fact that though IRCC is looking to meet its target of 8.5%, they feel that they may not be able to meet this number because of huge concentration of final decisions that they will have to make towards the later part of the year. And they feel that they may not be able to create or approve all the applications. And I guess this is also one of the reasons, if you have received an invitation under the Francophone category, in the French category, your application actually gets processed much faster. We have been getting decisions of the applications that we have been handling in as less as 2 months, and even lower than that, primarily if they were Francophone category applicants. So their application will process quite fast. And I'm assuming that this is one of the reasons that they are in such a rush to meet their targets, that they were fast processing those applications. But the interesting one is this one. Additional analysis is underway on lower approval rates for the majority of the clients. Why will there be lower approval rates for majority of the clients? Why? Why should there be lower approval rate? Very interesting, isn't it? Francophone, all they need is to be eligible in Express Entry. That basically means 1 year of work experience, continuous. If you are a federal skilled worker, you have English, if at all you do. And then you have the Francophone or the French language proficiency. You're eligible, bang, and in you go into the pool and then off, right? Of course, you get points for your education as well. And if you have the English language, then you get additional points. But why are they anticipating lower approval rates? That is something very interesting. I mean, it did make me think that are they referring to the high number of fake French results that are being uncovered on almost a daily basis? I know, I mean, as much as you all are also aware, French language test scams are also quite, I wouldn't say common, but they are not rare either. And there are instances, there are applicants who have been receiving phone calls from IRCC officers insisting in conversing with them in French, therefore also uncovering some issues. And they have also been asking people to come for an in-person interview in Etobicoke office and in Vancouver office as well for French, to basically assess their French language proficiency. So interesting one on that one. But again, I wasn't able to understand why are they anticipating lower approval rates for the majority of their clients in Francophone. Interesting one. I guess we will find out more about this when we get some more information on the ATIP notes for this particular section. Other than that, again, they are saying the same thing. ITA calendar will be shared with the provinces. And I guess this is one of the reasons why, for example, provinces like Ontario hasn't been conducting or hasn't conducted their human capital priorities draw or their skilled trade draw either. Because for Ontario, it makes no sense to conduct a skilled trade draw and then on IRCC conducts a draw, which is at the lower point, and everybody's ITAs are basically lost as far as OINP is concerned. So OINP had then made it a rule, kind of, not, I wouldn't say a rule, but basically a process whereby they would invite candidates pretty much after IRCC's express entry draw and put it at 1 point less as their high point, therefore allowing more people to apply. So with this calendar being shared with the provinces, I would assume that that also gives them provinces an insight as to when the draws will be held. Therefore, they can then schedule and plan their draws. This could be one of the reasons why Ontario probably is not conducting their draws. There has been no STEM draw, nothing for Ontario to conduct in terms of their human capital priorities tech draw. But on that note, Ontario could have still conducted their healthcare draw. There's already been so many healthcare draws already, right? But they still haven't. And then again, brings me back to my original theory of the fact that they don't have enough nomination quotas. I would like to wait till the 1st of November when the new immigration targets have been announced, so that would give us so much better insight as to what IRCC is planning. This is pretty much it as far as this document is concerned. Nothing much here other than this. Pemi Gill, who is the assistant deputy director, if I'm assistant deputy manager at the IRCC's operations, she is the one who has not probably, but drafted this entire document. So good job. Thank you, Pemi. I hope you can give us more insight information next time if you're watching, and that would be awesome if we can get that. That's basically these ATIP notes that I wanted to discuss with you. What are the chances for different categories? Let's quickly take a look. Now, speculation is all good, but speculation without any basis makes no sense. So therefore, I have no basis, no data point to make so many speculations. I can't talk about trades because I have no way of knowing how many people are there in the pool with scores and what kind of scores and what kind of occupation. So when you don't have that information, at least we know that there will be about 3,000 some invitations issued for trades, but without that information as to how many people are in the pool with the trade occupations, can't make that call, right? We can't say how many people, how many profiles. And again, also, we don't know how many invitations will be issued by RCC. Then same thing goes with STEM. We don't know what's going to go with that either. I'm hoping that next week, which is, as we all know, a draw week, that CEC draws make a comeback. We have seen a couple of weeks of category draws, and now I guess it's time for CECs to make a comeback, because CEC is something which is really in a panic mode right now. I anticipate at least 20,000 more invitations for CECs, 20,000 at least. And I'm saying that on the basis of how many invitations were issued last year under CEC categories, how many invitations are meant to be issued based on the targets. 126,000 was the target for in Canada focus, which is largely CECs. But even if we say that henceforth the targets are going to be for 2026, then mind you, there are about 117,000 in Canada focus targets for 2026 as well. And obviously these people are conducting their draws based on that number as of today. Of course, 1st of November will give us more insight as to what IRCC has in plan for 2026, 27 and 28. Until then, we can only, as I said, hope, pray, assume, stay forever hopeful, and then keep looking forward to that.